Welcome to Lowcountry Snapshots. I'm Courtenay Guthrie, and I want to wish you a very happy new year. Today, we want to take some time to celebrate our veterans. Thank you so much for your service, and we would love to hear your story. So reach out to us, and maybe we can share it with all of our viewers. Meanwhile, let's look back at a couple of wonderful veterans I had the privilege to interview. First, we'll look back at my interview with Mike Aikey. He is a retired Major General who had a long career in aviation. He believes that you can achieve your dreams through hard work and credits his mentors for helping him stay on his path to success. Now he spends his time being a mentor to others.
And that was one of the first combat operations our unit participated in, and that was back in 1995. Deployed to Germany, deployed to Kuwait, Turkey, Korea, of course, but those are the major deployments there.
Okay, now I know you were in Southern Watch of Iraq, and then your son had also joined.
Right.
And also been over in Iraq. Did you ever get a chance to meet up over there?
That wasn't Southern Watch, that was Iraqi Freedom. And I had been promoted to colonel at that time, and I was the director of operations at the state. And when our unit, of which my son belonged to the unit, he was a bomb loader. He was an enlisted individual, or bomb builder, I should say. He ended up deploying with the unit. Well, if you look at how the unit's comprised, in my position, they ended up deploying me over to Europe to work for a 4-star general, and I was one of his command directors, chief of staff types. So one day I found that my son was going to deploy over. So he deploys over. I said, hey guys, you mind if I take about a 3-hour break? And of course, you know, we all support each other. So I hopped in my rental car, drove up to Ramstein Air Base, Rhein-Main Air Base from Ramstein, and met up with my son. And you know, you gave him the fatherly advice, you know, keep your head down, do your job, listen to your bosses, and he deployed over. So that was a special moment. But more special is when everything was over and they're redeploying back. I was flying for United Airlines, and I had taken some military leave, but Linda had pass privileges. So it just so happened that she had come over to visit me after the war, and there was a lot of work to do after that because this was about a 6.5-month deployment for me. So I knew that Mike was coming the other way. So I ended up picking her up at the airport, and she had been over to visit, and she knew the German landscape and the roads. Well, I come out of the airport and I turned the opposite direction. She said, where are we going? And I said, we're going to go see Mike. And you could see the emotion well up inside her. So we drove over there and pulled up into the airbase. The C-17, which is a cargo airplane, lands. And Mike's in the C-17. And I go in to meet him. I'm in my flight suit, and it's him and 7 of his buddies. And I talked to the sergeant running the operation, and I said, I'd like to see these 7 guys. So I walked them through security, and Mike and my wife Linda see each other, and she gives him gives Smelly Mike, because he was dirty. You know what? It's not like you have showers. It's not the Marriott over there. Gave him a big hug and everything, and then I said to the guys, I said, come on guys, I got a little treat for you. So we walked out to the rental car, opened up the trunk, had a case of beer back there on ice, and said, drink up. So then I ended up giving Mike a bottle of fine scotch. And he said to me, he says, what's this for, the trip back? And I said, you better not break that seal. I said, that's for us when we get back. So we went ahead and I had that bottle of scotch. He finally gave it to me after I redeployed back in the June time frame. And then we'd have a shot of that scotch every now and then just to kind of remember things. So.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned flying for United. When did you start flying commercially, and who all did you fly for?
Well, I started off with a regional, and the regional was called Business Express, and we flew Saab 340s. It's a twin-engine, 34, I think it was 34 seats. And we did all Northeast, Southern Canada type flying. And it was great flying. I mean, the weather in the Northeast can be challenging, and you'd fly approaches down to approach minimums, which meant down to 200 feet, half-mile visibility, 1,800 feet of visibility, and you got good at flying the airplane. Well, I did that for a while, and then the guard said to me, and you have to understand, I was bouncing back and forth between the guard and the airline. And when you're in the National Guard or the Air National Guard, you know what, depending on what's going on in your life, you know, your primary job, your airline job in my case, or the guard, or your family, something has to take number 1, 2, and 3. And you know, I say this with all sincerity that, you know, our families in the military put up with a lot. And when I was a commander, I would impress that upon those that I commanded. But anyway, so anyway, I bounced back and forth, went to the Guard full time, and then I figured out, hey, I'd like to go fly for somebody, and UPS called, and I went and flew for UPS for a little less than a year. And when I got hired by UPS, and it was a great company to work for, I threw away all my applications with the exception of United, because I wanted to fly for United. And sure enough, they called. And I got hired by United in June 5th, 1995, and flew for them for a little over 25 years.
So when did you start flying internationally for United?
I started, let's see, that would have been in, I was on the 727 as a flight engineer, which wasn't a pilot. You know, you'd sit back there and monitor the fuel and things like that. And then I took a 767 to JFK, and that would have been about 97. So I started flying internationally in 1997, and I pretty much did that the entire time. I just didn't, you know what, flying internationally was, it was still exciting. And the thing is, it's not so much about meeting or seeing the Eiffel Tower or seeing the Taj, although those are neat things to see. It's experiencing different cultures and meeting different people. And you know, some of the special times are actually times that you didn't think were going to happen. You know, for example, I was over in London, which was an easy trip. We were walking back to the hotel. We had, you know, we'd just gone to dinner, and we popped into this pub for just a nightcap, and ended up running into this Gurkha, and he was presented some type of an award by the Queen that day. So we sat there and we talked about it, and he lived in Malta, and the reason he lived in Malta was the taxes were low. I mean, it was just, you talk to different people throughout the world, and so he goes through this entire story, and we go back to the hotel, get a great night's sleep, get up, have breakfast, report to the airplane, and flight attendant comes up with a paper and says, you guys interested in any papers? We wouldn't read them while we were flying, but we would have a break, so we'd take the paper back. So I took the paper back and I opened it up. Sure enough, there's the guy that we met the night before next to the Queen getting his presentation. And I just said, you know what, this was 100% validated.
I understand you would bring your wife back treats when you went on international flights. What kind of treats did you bring her back?
Pearls and cashmere sweaters and of course electronics, and typically electronics would break over there. But anyway, the things that I'd like to bring back, I'd like to bring back spices, cheeses, wines. You know what, I'd bring back some wine, I'd take a picture of it, you know, take a bottle here, a bottle there back. If we like it, I'd pick some more up on the next trip. Olive oils, you know, things like, I mean, going to Italy, and my mom was 100% Italian. I mean, I'd come out of Italy, and a crew meal is a crew meal, but a crew meal out of Italy was, I mean, you'd bite into that tomato and it would punch you in the face. It was so good. I mean, just the freshness and the good taste of Italian food. So.
Now, you retired a Major General, but you're still flying today, right?
I joined the Civil Air Patrol, and why did I do that? I still have a passion for aviation. I love to fly, and they do some active missions, some search and rescue missions and things along those lines, but what they also do is they also mentor young men and women by orientation flights, incentive flights, And I had the opportunity to give 4 junior ROTC cadets a flight about 2 weeks ago. And I talked to this one young lady. She was doing great. Once they're above 1,000 feet, I let them fly. She was doing great flying the airplane. And I said to her, "So Piper, what do you want to do once you graduate high school?" She says, "Well, I'd like to go to the Air Force Academy and then go to law school." She says, I said, "Oh." She says, "But I think I'm changing my mind." So I chalked that one up and said, "Hey, one for the good guys."
I was incredibly honored to interview Mike and really admire all that he has achieved. Our next veteran truly inspires me. It was so humbling to interview Cheryl Ruff and hear about her path to becoming a nurse anesthetist. Her story shows incredible commitment and bravery. It was so amazing that we broke it into 2 parts. The second part explored her time as the only female nurse anesthetist at the front lines of the Iraq War as a member of the Bravo Surgical Company. I know her stories made me emotional, and I hope you enjoy this look back as much as I will.
When I was in Pendleton, Camp Pendleton, before I had gone to anesthesia, I was intensive care, and Operation Desert Storm happened. And the Navy has 2 hospital ships, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. The one on the West Coast is the Mercy, the one on the East Coast is the Comfort. I was deployed as an intensive care nurse from Camp Pendleton, the hospital ship Mercy. And so I was sent over to sit in the Persian Gulf during Operation Desert Storm, and we took care of casualties. I was, like I said, I was working intensive care in a trauma bay on board ship. The hospital ships in the Navy are not owned by the Navy. They're owned by the Merchant Marines. The Merchant Marines are the navigators, the deckhands. They handle that ship. The Navy medical comes on board that ship as, let's call them a guest. We embark on the ship, we do the job of taking care of the patients, all the medical, but the Merchant Marines sail the ship over. So I was impressed. I was impressed, one, because it was my first chance to be on board a ship. I liked it. It was, I had a chance to take care of people that were injured into a ship environment. And I can tell you that those both hospital ships to this day are, they have the state-of-the-art equipment, and for both humanitarian and wartime. So I came off that ship, and then soon after that, after teaching hospital corps school, I became a nurse anesthetist. And my first duty station as a nurse anesthetist was Bethesda National Naval Medical Center. When I was assigned to National Naval Medical Center, you have all the people in the medical field in the Navy are assigned their daily, where they're going to be assigned, their daily, what do I want to call it? You know, where your hospital is, that's where you, but you're also assigned a platform in case of war, in case of humanitarian. My platform when I got to the Naval Hospital in Bethesda was the hospital ship, the Comfort now. So now I was the chief nurse anesthetist on the hospital ship, the Comfort. And at that time, the Comfort was going to go out to Lithuania to do a humanitarian tour. So I got a chance to now go on that hospital ship. Loved it. I was a nurse anesthetist on that one. We took care of patients that came on board, and they were sent off after we cared for them, and I learned a lot. It was a good experience. Actually, there was one patient, his name was Jeff. We were taking on the casualties, and we had 2 tents with 2 litters that we would care for in our operating tent. And I was in the tent that handled chest, neck, head. And but if our tent was empty and another one was full, we'd take on anything, either tent. And we got the call that we were coming in with an airway emergency. and I had a space. I was ready to take it on. And when you're talking airway emergency for someone who's in anesthesia, that can mean a lot of things. But the number one thought that goes through your mind is there's something going on with that airway, and I got to be able to secure the airway to keep them alive. And with trauma, you're thinking bloody airway, which you have to be able to see certain structures when you look down someone's mouth to be able to get a breathing tube in them. So within a few minutes, a young guy, a young Marine, was brought into me. He was still awake, and his eyes were open, and he could hardly speak. He was having shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, and I knew that this was going to be somewhat of a difficult intubation, getting an airway in him. And I remember I was hooking up my monitors, and the surgeons are ready. They're thinking, okay, we took chest injuries as well. And I remember looking down at him, and I thought, I need to give him a drug to paralyze his vocal cords. Because we do that when we need to put a breathing tube down, because if you don't, the vocal cords want to close and you can't get the breathing tube down. Well, this drug makes all your muscles in your body, including your diaphragm, which is your muscle of respiration, not move. The drug works for a good 5 to 7 minutes. So I know once I give that drug, if I can't breathe for him, he's going to die. So the other part of this is you can ventilate somebody by just a mask, but he needed an airway. He needed an airway. So I remember when I was giving him oxygen to help him breathe, he was still breathing on his own. And when I started giving him the drugs to make him go to sleep and make him paralyze his vocal cords, I just remember those few seconds. It takes a good 60 seconds, a minute for that drug to take effect. I just closed my eyes and I prayed to God. I prayed, please, Lord, get this tube in, because his trachea, which is your airway, which is normally straight, was now pushed over to the side. So now I didn't even have normal anatomy going on anymore. And I figured it was about a minute, I went ahead and I took a look, and to this day, it was the act of God's hands making that tube go in. And now I secured the tube. The surgeons could get the bleeding stopped, whatever they could do. We needed to get this guy out. The admin people were calling for a helicopter to come in. And in the meantime, I was getting drugs lined up, because I had to pass this young guy off to the Marines or the Army, whoever's coming, and let them know what drugs, keep him sedated, keep him unconscious, give him these neuromuscular blocking agents, these paralyzing drugs, so he won't start moving in midair in the helicopter and then knocks the airway out, because they're not going to be able to get an airway back in. I'm getting my tanks, little portable oxygen tanks ready, and they kept coming in to tell me the helicopter's coming, they'll be here 3 minutes. We had the guys ready to lift the litter, and I was going. The birds here were going out to what they made as an airstrip, and the helicopter landed, the door opened on the side, we're loading in. Jeff and the co-pilot and the pilot are anxious to get off the ground. We want to go. And I'm trying to yell over the noise of the helicopter blades to who I thought was a hospital corpsman, because our rank was taken off our collars, telling them what syringes to give, wrote it down. Please, please give this in 30 minutes, this in whatever, 10 minutes. And I just kept saying, please continue to squeeze the ambu bag to keep oxygen going. Here's an extra tank. And finally, I think I was taking too long, and the helicopter pilot looks back and goes, we're going. And we stood back, and the helicopter took off, and I have to be honest, at that point you don't know if the helicopter's going to get shot down, if he's going to live, will you ever hear anything else about him? And it wasn't until about I was home. I got out of the Navy. I retired in 2003, right when I came off. I left in February to go to Iraq. We came home in May, and in June, when I got off the plane, I basically retired. I had my retirement papers put in, and it was probably about 2 years later. I was working at the Chesapeake Surgery Center. I just got home from work, and I got a phone call from in my kitchen. I answered the phone and I said, hello, and this voice said, is this Commander Ruff? And I go, well, yes, it is. And I was a little taken back because I hadn't been called Commander for several years. And he said, well, my name is Jeff, and I just called you to thank you for taking care of my life. And so I got and jumped ahead a little bit because I came home, and then like I said, I retired right away, and I started working for Chesapeake Surgery Center, and I tried to put that part behind me, but I no sooner got home, and I was approached by a Navy nurse, as my book is, Sue Roper, who was a Navy nurse, and she approached me about writing my story. And she had been a psychiatric Navy nurse, and she too had retired years ago and was really interested in doing stories and writing books and papers on Navy nurses that had gone to war. And she approached me about it, and I wasn't really keen on it. And I said, I want to forget that part of my life. And she said, I think it'd be good for you, Cheryl. So after about a few weeks, I said, oh, well, we'll try this. And so she would come every day, not every day rather, but periodically with a tablet, a recorder, some questions to ask me. And she said, I don't know if we'll see what we can do, and I don't know who will publish it, but I'm going to put a manuscript together and see what I can come up with. And we go back and forth. No, Sue, you're not understanding this. And yeah, you got it. And okay. And she finally got the manuscript together. She sent it off to the Naval Institute. They looked at it. They said, we want to take this. We want a book. You have 9 months to finish this up. So we worked pretty fast at that point, and the Naval Institute published the book, and that's how Jeff found out, because not only the Naval Institute but the Naval Academy puts out a magazine that's called Proceedings, and they took the chapter about Jeff and they put it in Naval Proceedings, and Jeff's buddy happened to see that Proceedings monthly magazine, and he got a hold of Jeff and he said, Jeff, I think this is you in the book. And Jeff goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, read this book, read this paper. And Jeff knew it was him. And that's when he contacted me. He said he had tried numerous times. Of course, the people at work wouldn't give out the phone number, my personal phone number, but then they finally gave in and said, okay. He said, I really have to talk to this gal. She saved my life. I need to talk to her. So we spent about an hour on the phone. Both of us were crying. And he had at that time, I think 6 or 7 surgeries, and ended up he had 12 surgeries till it was total. They rebuilt his voice box, and he had numerous plastic surgeries, and he never came back for the front lines, but he stayed on active duty with the Marines, and he recruited people in to go onto the front lines. So